Africa's economic growth is set to accelerate by 3.7% this year and 4.3% next year, up from 3.1% in 2023, according to African Development Bank President Akinwumi Adesina. Adesina expressed hope that the bank can boost infrastructure investments with the help of the International Monetary Fund. Now, the AFDB has invested over $50 billion in infrastructure projects in the continent in the past 9 years. From Accra, Ghana, I have joining me Benjamin Bachi, Chief Economist, Second Stacks. Thank you so much, Benjamin, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Africa's economic growth is expected to accelerate, according to what we've seen. Now, kindly elaborate on how this growth is expected to distribute across different sectors of the African economy.
Sure. The forecast is probably brightest in the services sector and the industry sector, which will do particularly well based on what we're hearing out of AFDB going forward. So those are the two that I'm most bullish on. Agriculture is also picking up as global demand picks up. So, that's looking good as well.
Now, we see that the African Development Bank president highlighted the resilience of African economy. So for you, what specific factors do you think are contributing to this in the face of challenges like probably climate change and global inflation?
Well, on the climate change front, I think the entire world is working together to try to band together and increase resilience. But I think where Africa has stood out has probably been on the interest rates and inflation side, because you've seen a lot of other countries all over the world really take a major hit, and Africa wasn't exempt. But a lot of African countries did make it out to the other side relatively unscathed, and I think that's likely what the president of AFDB was pointing to.
Now, we see that the AFDB has actually invested heavily in infrastructure projects. So I'd like you to explain how increased infrastructure investment is expected to contribute to Africa's economic growth. What is the tie?
This one is very, very key to the growth plan for the continent. All right, because we're entering this phase of multilateral economic development on the continent with these regional corridors that the AFDB is playing a role in coordinating. So ensuring that infrastructure that is needed, for the movement of goods and services is well financed is probably what they're talking about. The game changer really is on the side of industry. If AFDB and other partners finance African.
Benjamin, all right. So even as we conclude on this, Benjamin, well, we see that the IMF approved multilateral banks lending against SDRs, and the FDB has suggested leveraging SDRs to deliver more financial support. I'd like to quickly, in about a minute or two, Benjamin, find out what your thoughts are on how this mechanism would work, if you can hear me.
They're basically talking about leveraging the special drawing rights. So these are assets that countries are given in proportion to their shareholding in these multilateral institutions, IMF, World Bank. So leveraging them through a development bank allows the bank to essentially add it to its capital and then raise more money, debt. So basically what they're projecting is that there will be a 4-to-1 increase in the value of those special drawing rights, or at least in the firepower they're going to be able to deploy if these assets are channeled through development banks.
Also, Benjamin, the FDB is helping to raise funds now for the East Africa Standard Gauge Railway. How do you think this railway project will benefit the economies, talking about Tanzania, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Burundi?
Right. So this goes back to the point I was making about the need to coordinate industrial policy with multilateral financing. So if this corridor is built in such a way whereby uh, the infrastructure kind of focuses on the supply chains, for example, then you have industrial policy that makes a lot of sense. You're able to add a lot of value and you're able to do it seamlessly because now you have the infrastructure in place to support that. So that's how you can do this in a more effective way. And I think the focus is there because you look at AFDB, you look at the partners that they're working with, the Bretton Woods institutions, and then you also just look at the AU and AFTA and how all the mechanisms that are needed for this level of coordination are already in place. They're built into the program. So that's my take on the corridor projects, both the one in East Africa and Southern Africa. That's kind of and Western Africa as well. Those are the focuses that I think are important.
Hmm. Well, before we round up, Benjamin, we see that the FDB is also contributing to the development of the Lobito corridor. Are there any significant, maybe addition or benefits of this corridor to trade and economic activity between, well, Zambia, Angola, and we keep talking about the DRC too?
These are major commodity hubs on the continent, talking about Angola, the DRC. So again, just designing these corridors and executing in such a way that the financing is targeted to where the infrastructure is designed such that there's seamless industrial policy across all of these countries. That's going to be the game changer.
So finally, are there any potential challenges that could hinder Africa's economic growth in the coming years that you feel we should be wary of and we should be probably preparing for to tackle headlong?
Yeah, I know. I probably keep making the same point, but the biggest threat to Africa's near-term, medium-term development is a lack of cooperation. We've kind of gotten to a point where it's very clear to most people that Africa needs to develop industrial and economic policy in conjunction. That's the entire point behind the AFTA agreements, and it's also the entire point behind AFDB. So it's the right idea for these cross-border institutions to take a much larger role in the development of all African nations, and we're moving in that direction.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Benjamin Bachi, Chief Economist, Second Stocks, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thanks for having me.